Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to see you on this sunny Friday here in Massachusetts. I'm Andrew Feinberg, and I am a principal with TimeLooper. Many of you have had the opportunity to chat with us in the past at the SEMC and at other events. We are very appreciative of your time this morning. We reached out to Susan and the folks at SEMC because we've been getting a lot of inquiries from people asking about, now that their doors are closed, how they can stay open for impact. And therefore, we decided the best way to reach all of you at scale was to facilitate a webinar, which is what we're going to do now over the course of the next hour. A couple of housekeeping items before we dive into the content. You'll see the Q&A button on your control panel. If you have any questions as we're going along, slide by slide, please feel free to enter those questions into the dialog box. I'm going to do my best to address some of those on the pages where those questions are found. But to the extent that there are more questions than time permits, I might have to defer some of those questions to the end. We will stay at the end to answer any and all questions that have been asked. We do not have a hard stop of 12 noon, but we do want to be respectful of the time that's been allocated for those of you who do have to leave. And we will want to get through all of the material within the allotted hour. So feel free to just reach out and ask those questions within the dialog box. So without further ado, we will be jumping right in. Before I jump in, I'm actually going to pass it over to Susan, who is here with us today, and I'm going to ask her to say a few words. So Susan, you're on mute, but if you want to unmute, you're welcome to address the membership.
Okay. Well, thank you, Andrew, for offering this opportunity to our members. I know everyone's now jumping into virtual reality and offering more programs from their museums. So we appreciate you sharing your expertise.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity. So thank you. And without further ado, we're going to jump right in. So we're going to spend a bunch of time talking today, talking about how you can stand up virtual tours quickly for your institution. And we are going to be talking about everything that we're talking about today is absolutely free, F-R-E-E, free, with the exception of certain pieces of hardware. If you do not have them, you'll obviously have to procure those. We have attempted to identify pieces of hardware that are at consumer prices to enable institutions of all resources to be able to actually acquire what we believe is to be some of the best hardware in class for value. So with you today, you have me, as I previously said. I'm Andrew Feinberg. I'm a principal here at TimeLooper, and I'm joined by my colleague Yeter, who many of you have also met at various conferences. Before we jump into how you can bring your institution online, I think it's useful to just level set on what VR is, because everybody has their own definition. So when we're talking about VR for the sake of this conversation today, and in the context of COVID-19, it's really about enabling people who are stuck at home to immerse themselves in another environment. It's really that simple. Whether you are on your couch or you are outside because you need a little bit of space from your family, if you're sheltering in place, really what virtual reality enables you to do is to completely take yourself out of that present environment and put yourself somewhere else. Now, that actually occurs in one of two ways, because this immersion can take two primary forms. So the first of which is if you want to transport people to another environment that exists today. So if you want to take people to your museum or to your public land or to your historic site, what you can do is capture the world as it looks through photo or video or 3D scans. Right? In this particular deployment of virtual reality, all that we are doing is taking these traditional methods and putting them in a 360-degree environment, and then hopefully also allowing for interactivity and movement through those environments. Alternatively, you might actually want to take people out of their living room and not just take them in a different place, but take them to a different time. You might want to take them to the future to see the impacts of climate change. You might want to take them into the past to experience the Declaration of Independence. or to meet a T-Rex, whatever it may be. In those particular instances, you need to deploy what we call computer-generated imagery, or what we would call CGI. Those interpretive products are incredibly valuable, and they offer a very different kind of use case and experience, but they typically take a little bit longer to develop because it's not as simple as capturing a photo. Both are effective. It's not that one is better than the other. They just have different applications. And so before we move forward today and sort of dive into how you can actually create these products, we thought it might be helpful for those of you who have never experienced virtual reality before to visualize it yourself, because it will be a very useful reference as we move through the latter portions of the presentation. So with that, I'm going to actually pass the screen share to my colleague Yeet, who's going to walk you through a use case of an institution that was closed and show you both of these principal forms of immersion.
All right, thank you. Now I'm joining from my iPad to show you the 360 experience, and I'm going to start to share my screen and switch to the content. All right, so it starts now loading. So this example is from Washington, D.C. National Mall. As you know, Washington Monument was closed for a period of time. And then during this period of time, National Park Service asked us to give access to the view from the top, for accessibility purposes. But of course, the goal was not only served during that period of time, but still other times you have to buy a ticket, make a line, and then go up. So that's one. So how to show view from the top. And this is the view from the top of Washington, D.C. As Andrew was mentioning, this is a present day capture of the view. Then they said, okay, so we are doing this, but also we would like to, the primary interpretive topic here is to show DC over different times, the history of Washington, DC. So in that, and for that purpose, we created in CGI, computer generated content, the landscape in different time periods. Now we are going to see how the landscape has changed over the centuries. Now we go back in time and see DC in 1800s in full 360 degrees. And we have here different time periods, and each one is computer generated content for those times.
Thank you, Yeet. I think that when we talk about virtual reality, it's important to consider that what makes it so powerful is not just the visualization, but what it affords. Virtual reality affords contextualization and meaning. It's not just enough to be able to see a place or to immerse yourself in that environment, but to really get a sense for what it's about. Why are you telling this story? Why do you want people to be there? A famous virtual reality producer has called virtual reality the empathy machine. The ability to fully place somebody in a wholly different context and really utilize multiple senses and to help them visualize your concepts, your interpretive goals, the lessons, the emotions you help people take away from your institution are really furthered when you use this technology appropriately. And when we talk about immersion, we don't just mean using a headset. So what you saw on your desktop was what Yeet showcased, utilizing nothing but a tablet. Optimally, would everybody have a super high-end headset at their house? Of course. Headsets do start as low as $150, but in today's environment, people can immerse themselves in your experiences through a smartphone device or a tablet, whether it's an Android, or an iPhone, or an iPad, or even a Chrome desktop tablet device that all of these students have in school. The point is, people can engage in these really immersive experiences with the hardware they have at home. We're having this webinar today because people are stuck sheltering in place all across the country. I would not worry about letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. People have access to this content today. People already have access to some of the platforms that we're going to talk about. And so generating content quickly, pushing it out, and allowing them to escape and usher themselves into your institutions at a time like this on their tablets, their smartphones, their laptops is a really powerful capability that you can offer. So with the definitions out of the way, now we should take a few minutes to talk about how you can actually publish this kind of content. So at its most basic level, there are two main types of content that we believe are relatively simple for you to create. That is a 360-degree picture and a 360-degree video. Both of these basic virtual reality content types can be easily produced with consumer-grade equipment, right? So what we're talking about is going out and buying a GoPro, or going out and buying a Ricoh Theta, a Garmin Verb, or an Insta360. The price points on these pieces of hardware range from $150 to the high end. Our favorite is the Garmin Verb at about $700. You can order it on Amazon and you'll have it on Monday. You can take your photos and upload them by Monday afternoon. You'll have a virtual tour online. All of these pieces, pieces of hardware are really great at both capturing 360-degree pictures and video. They do both of those two things. And then when you capture those, it's a question of how you then publish them out. So there are desktop solutions like YouTube 360 and Facebook 360, where and even Vimeo for apps, where you can allow people to immerse themselves on a desktop and scroll through. Or you can use higher end publication platforms like the Oculus Store or the Gear VR Store, or as we'll talk about later, TimeLooper is offering its entire platform to all SEMC members at no charge as well. So you could send us these images and we'll upload them and they can be made immediately available. And maybe in many cases, it's not a question of which one, but multiple platforms. With regards to use cases on what this looks like, for example, I want to show you the Guggenheim Museum of what a 360-degree photo looks like on a desktop experience. So this here is the Guggenheim Museum in New York City. So those of you who haven't been, right, you could take 360-degree photos and upload them to Google. And this is a desktop experience where people can click and drag and scroll across their desktop. And then you can easily and seamlessly move through the environment. So all you're doing is clicking and dragging. Again, very easy to take these 360-degree photos and upload them to Google, and then allow people to scroll them using the click and drag method of a mouse on a desktop or even on a tablet device. Alternatively, if you want to enhance interpretive value and you actually want to have somebody explaining what's going on in the foreground, we recommend using 360-degree video. So here's an example from Thomas Edison's National Historic Site. And this is a National Park Service ranger who's describing in this 360-degree video environment about what it is that you're seeing.
A National Historical Park. I'm glad you can join me here in Edison's library, or some refer to it as his office. He spent a lot of time here in West Orange, arrived here in 1887, spent the rest of his life till he passed away in 1931. He did a lot of work here at his desk, and as you take a look at it, you can see there's a lot of papers, a lot of books.
So as you can see, in both of these instances, it was a consumer-grade camera that was then utilized to capture content and then uploaded to different platforms. One was YouTube for a video, one was Google for a photo. You could do all of this. If you have a camera, you could do this today and upload it. It's very, very simple to do. But it's useful, but insufficient to show you how to actually, the types of hardware and publication platforms that you could utilize. It's necessary, but insufficient. We believe that it's also valuable to also think about how you can utilize VR. So context and meaning are very different for different kinds of museums and for different kinds of environments. And so, for example, if it's a public land or a museum with a large outdoor space, maybe it's about exploring the outdoor environment or meeting endangered species if it's a zoo, visualizing alternate seasons. The ability to allow people to have access to parts of your delicate ecosystem or your endangered species that they might otherwise not have access to actually allows people to have enhanced access, ironically, even though they're sitting at home. I do have a question from Laura on the previous slide, which was, is the user able to zoom in? Laura, on the video, you're not able to zoom in. You are typically stuck in place. On the video, on the photo, as you saw, you do have the ability to move in and hop from point to point. We'll also show you later a couple of other tricks that you can deploy through interactivity to allow for people to zoom into different pieces of content. But typically, zooming in is only a feature that's allowed inside of still environments, not inside of video environments. So back to context and meaning. If you're a historic site, what virtual reality does is it really allows for people to appreciate the grandeur of what made this place important, and engage with historically important artifacts, and to step inside of history in these preserved places, particularly if you have living historians who can come in and play the role of the NPS ranger. It really allows people to step inside of history, even in a way in which there are no other visitors. And so it's a much more intimate experience. And virtual reality allows people who are stuck at home to meet historians, to view artifacts in a very bespoke manner. And then, of course, if you are a more traditional museum that explore a range of concepts, it's not just about allowing people to see the museum, but actually getting behind the casings and exploring your collections up close and in person in a very intimate manner. And we'll show you again a couple of tricks. I think that one of the things that's really important when considering VR right now is that people are stuck at home and they're bored and they're looking for ways to reach out and engage their community and have culturally engaging experiences. I spend all day thinking about how I'm going to get my 6-year-old child from breakfast to dinner without us losing our minds. And these are great platforms for kids of all ages to be able to have engaging, enriching experiences. But it's not just for kids, right? There are also, everybody is socially isolated right now. So you have a large membership base that might traffic through your museum multiple times a year. There are elderly Americans who are the most at risk, who are sheltering in place. Reaching out to those communities and providing that connective tissue through that which you do well, which is telling your story in an immersive environment, is very valuable. So we would encourage you to think about what programming you deliver on site already and how that can be scaled and ported into a virtual environment. If you center on middle school biology and you have a very robust interpretive plan, that's probably a good place to start with regards to thinking about how you're going to develop your VR experiences. Now is not necessarily the time to think about developing new interpretive plans to be deployed in VR. That is something that you'll have plenty of time to do. We would recommend doubling down on your strengths and deploying these 360-degree photos and videos with your existing interpretive plans, because that is something that you can get out very quickly. But even with regard to your interpretive plans and these 360-degree photos and videos, there are steps that you can take to enhance the immersiveness of these, what we would call on-demand or do-it-yourself experiences. So in the example of a 360-degree photo, you can take it and make it much more interactive by overlaying these interpretive elements. So in a world in which you want people to engage with the environment through interactivity and not just listen to a ranger, there are steps that you can take to enable people to do that themselves. In the example of a 360-degree video, turning it into a movie and showing more enhanced visualizations will allow people to have a more immersive experience. Jim asked a question, which is, are iPhone images and videos adequate? Typically, Jim, the answer is that we would not recommend deploying an iPhone to capture 360-degree video. You can embed 360-degree video, a standard iPhone video inside of a 360-degree photo environment, which is what we're about to show you. But typically, if what you're looking to do is to capture 360-degree photos or videos, you are best served spending a modest sum of money to actually acquire a low-end consumer-grade 360-degree camera. So with that, I am going to share my screen back to Yeet and allow him to show you a couple of examples of how you can facilitate interactivity or enhanced immersiveness through film production in VR.
Now I'm going to show you 3 different experiences, again from my iPad, which also works on smartphones. All right, so the first one is an outdoor example of how you can make a 360-degree picture more interactive, more interpretive, more meaningful for the visitors. So this is a project that we have done about a year ago with East Bay Regional Parks. So they took this 360-degree picture. Their goal was, and then still the same reason, is bringing their park to the communities who cannot access for various reasons. So in this case, there's an introductory point.
Pleasanton Ridge Regional Park's open space protects land that is vital for the plants and animals who make a home on these hillsides. Bountiful wildflowers can be found here in springtime, while bobcats.
As urban areas around regional parks expand, plants and animals seek out new habitats.
As you can see, some of them have audio, some of them pictures, images, full 360-degree, and providing information about the park and this location. So the other example is going to be an example from inside a museum historic house in Washington, D.C., Ford's Theater, Peterson's house. Peterson's house was closed for a period of time, and they wanted to show the inside the museum. And then also as an interpretive, they wanted to talk about the people who has been in that room on that day. So in this case, imagine this could be inside a museum, and then this could be artifacts, or this could be a historic location, and then you want stories to tell. In this specific case, we use the voices of those people who has been in that room on that day.
I inquired where Miss Lincoln was and was informed that she was in the front parlor. I entered the parlor and found her there entirely alone. She was standing by a marble-top table in the center of the room.
Why did you not come to me last night, Elizabeth? I sent for you, Mrs. Lincoln asked in a low whisper. I did.
So now let me show you a video, a virtual reality movie from Federal Hall in New York City. So this is where Federal Hall is where George Washington was inaugurated, but the meaning is lost in the crowd right next to New York Stock Exchange. So now in this specific example, we use several different techniques to bring history to life.
It has been such an exciting spring. Our new nation's first electoral college has selected Revolutionary War General George Washington to be its first president. Rumor and notice of our war heroes' pending arrival to New York City, now our nation's capital, has created.
Thank you, Yeet. And so, as you saw, there are a range of different interpretive methods that you can take to facilitate interactivity. Some of those you can actually develop yourself. One of the ones that I like is Pano 2 VR. And I should say, I did get a question. This webinar and the documentation will be made available on TimeLooper's website later today. And I'm going to send it to Susan. Hopefully she'll upload it on the SEMC website as well. And also there are a series of links at the end of this presentation that you can all click on directly to get to various products and services that we're talking about, including this one, Pano 2 VR. So for those of you who feel brave enough to want to try to facilitate this yourself, these are off-the-shelf tools that you can utilize to create those multi-point tours and facilitate the interactivity that you saw inside of the TimeLooper app. For those of you who are less brave and just want somebody else to do it, TimeLooper is more than happy to do that for any and all of you in this time of need at absolutely no charge. So it really just depends upon that which you want to do. So then moving on from there, it's when thinking about facilitating this level of interactivity, the question then becomes, well, how do we think, as I mentioned before, how do we think about porting our interpretive programming into these virtual environments? So for example, one of the things that you can do is take a scavenger hunt that you might already have, and then we could then deploy that for you or with you inside of this 360-degree environment with an avatar tour guide. And you could ask this individual to interact with different objects inside of your 360-degree environment and identify that which they're looking for. This is just one illustrative example that's designed to reinforce the notion that you have already created lots and lots of great content for your customers. If you're looking for a place to start, think about the next 60 to 90 days and who the majority of individuals are that are going to be trafficking through your doors. Is it students taking their spring trip? Is it, do you have a big art exhibition coming up that focuses on a specific painter? If that's the case, maybe you might want to start there and reach out to these communities and say, hey, look, we know that you can't have your field trip. Hey, look, we know that you can't come to our exhibition, but utilize this virtual tour that we have created that integrates all of the interpretive planning that we had planned for inside of our museum into this virtual experience. Is it the same thing? No. Is it better than nothing? Absolutely. Will it give people something to do? 100%. Will it allow you to deepen your connection with your community? For sure. So with that, for some of these institutions who we're talking with today, maybe it's specifically historic sites, but not exclusively, sense of place is very important. And so it's not just enough to be able to offer or facilitate a series of 360-degree video or photo experiences, but you actually need that sense of place or space to help deepen the understanding. And so in that regard, one of the things that you can do is you can deploy a virtual map. So for example, what we can do is we can take a map of your historic site or of your museum or of your public land, and then that map can basically serve as the dashboard or the platform that people can actually walk on. So now you will have students or you will have families or you will have adults at home who will download an application onto their tablet device or onto their smartphone, and then they can walk across the living room and then walk across your historic site. They can walk through your museum rather than having to hop point to point. And then when they get to certain points, like on this virtual map, when they get to the Masonic Temple or Fan Island, it will then trigger one of those interpretive experiences where the interpreter, the living historian of the 360-degree photo pops up and allows them to immerse themselves in that experience. So all that we're doing here is taking those independent experiences that we saw before, the one from the art gallery, the one from Edison's house, and putting them in a place-based contextual environment. Beyond that, it's not just enough. And by the way, I should say that all of these products are what we would consider on demand, right? So you can create these experiences. They're incredibly scalable, whether you get 10,000 visitors or 300,000 visitors, all of these people are able to consume this at the same time. But let's say, for example, you're the Atlanta History Center, and you know that in the month of April, you've got 25 school groups a day coming through for your spring temporary exhibition. How are you going to able to actually engage with those students in real time while they're at home? So there's two layers of challenge here. The first of which is those students aren't even in school. They're all stuck at home doing distance-based learning with their teacher. That's problem one. Problem two, they then can't even get to your institution. So what we've done is we've developed virtual reality video conferencing effectively. So taking this Zoom conference and putting it into that place, so then that way your docent, your guide, the head of your exhibition can actually facilitate a tour and walk people through the exhibition or engage with them in these historic places as if they were on site. You're exactly replicating that on-site experience in this virtual environment. Now you have students at home who cannot get to school who are able to get to your institution with their teacher at the same time. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to send it back to Yeet, who's going to do a demonstration of what this map functionality looks like. Oh, sorry. But before I do that, I will just say that it is true that this map platform with video conferencing is much less scalable, because at the end of the day, you only have so many interpreters and you only have so much time. But what you can do is you can record these virtual engagement sessions, just like we're doing now. You can post those online or on your virtual platforms that we make available, and then school groups can replicate those tours all around the country, on demand. So you're taking something that's not scalable and you're basically creating a new product to sit alongside those core interpretive products like the map. So with that, I'm going to now pass it back to Yeet, who's going to show you what the map platform experience is
like. Right. So before I share my screen, oops, let me try this. So I'm using my phone, and then as you can see, I'm looking around, and then I see a virtual map. And now let's switch to my camera, my screen. Right. So this project was created for Japan, a historic city, and they want to tell the story of the city, and then there are the different stories in different parts of the neighborhood. So we created this experience. But as I'm showing you the experience now, also I'm going to answer a few of the questions that came earlier. So I'm holding my phone now, and now the experience will start shortly. And
Shimonoseki is a city with many stories to tell to her visitors. In some such stories, Shimonoseki played a supporting role. In others, she was the main actor, changing the course of history for the entirety of Japan. To hear her stories and witness her history unfold, start exploring by walking on the virtual map. Kyofu Town might be most famous for its gardens, ancient temples.
So here, as you saw, as I was walking to different points, actually you can utilize both of the two features. One is video conferencing, the one that Andrew was mentioning. Imagine we are walking on this map with a ranger. Two, you can also take regular 2D pictures, videos from your phone, and then put it on the map. So it is like Google Maps in that sense. When we can go to Google Maps and then see, you can go to Google Maps and then see like what kind of pictures people post. Now you can put your interpretive content, recorded it, and then when people go to that specific point, that 2D content pops up, and then you watch that, and then you keep walking on the map.
Thank you. So Katie, that partially answers your question. If you have these 2D photos, you can put them into the map environment. We cannot take lots of historic photos and turn them into a 360-degree environment. That we cannot do. I mean, it's possible, but with considerably more budget and considerably more time, then it's not something that's simple to do. But those 2D photos can be deployed as overlays inside of that environment. So like what you saw at East Bay Regional Park District or at Ford's Theater, if you can take a 360-degree photo from the same perspective that 2D photo exists, then we can perfectly overlay that photo so it looks like a time portal or a window into the past. But we cannot take 30 photos and then just stitch them together into a contiguous virtual place or experience. So we've spoken about many different products. Oh, and by the way, I should say that, again, TimeLooper is deploying this map product for all of our partners at no charge. So if any of you want this product, we'll tell you how to reach out to us afterwards. We're building them for everybody, and we will get to you as soon as we can, and we want to make them available to you because we believe that they're incredibly powerful contextual tools to help you reach out to and engage with your community. If you're feeling brave and you want to do it yourself, there are other platforms out there. Notably, Engage VR is one of the ones that we think works. I don't want to say it works the best, but it works. And so you could absolutely go look at that resource as well if that's something that you want to deploy. So we've spoken about a lot of different products, right? Like Katie's question was about, can we make more complicated VR experiences? Given where we are today, there's obviously a trade-off when it comes to time and immersiveness. And so we believe that there is something of a sweet spot that allows you to balance immersiveness and interpretive impact relative to time. So 360-degree photos with interactive overlays and 360-degree videos are the kinds of things that can get stood up in a matter of days, talking about 48 to 72 hours. The need is immediate. And then you could either stand those up in a platform like YouTube. You could post it immediately on YouTube 360 or on Facebook, or it can be up in the TimeLooper app, again, within 72 hours. Or you could also deploy the interactive map platform, which would take a couple of extra days, but all within a week or two. Because some of the other more complicated technologies that we're seeing, like the cinematic VR, while really compelling, those take months to actually produce. So here's a question. Is it possible to generate VR experiences with Google Lens or some other image recognition app? I'm not familiar with Google Lens. Yeet, are you? Google Lens. Yeet, you're on mute.
I think I think Google Lens is to create AR objects. I'm not 100% sure, but like, yes, I mean, the quality would vary, obviously, but eventually that asset is technically integratable to our environment.
Okay, well, now that I know what Google Lens is, absolutely. Chris, and you don't just have to use Google Lens. Sounds like a tool where you can create AR. You can also use other photogrammetry tools to create AR objects. Photogrammetry, for those of you who don't know, is just taking lots and lots of photos of a specific objects and then uploading those photos to a software platform, I guess like Google Lens, and then converting them into a three-dimensional object. You can then take that three-dimensional object and either put it into our 360 photo environments or into that map-based platform. So that's
right. Actually, Google Lens is an image recognition that recognizes image. So it's a different product. So you will, again, it's an AR kind of thing. Let's say I have this pen and then I'm holding my camera and then it gives information about this pen. So in this case, if it's a virtual tour, then this is more like going off the field and then looking around objects and then holding it and recognizing them rather than doing it at home, I believe.
Got it. Thanks, Yeet. However, now that we've sort of meandered and gotten the answer to that question, to the extent that you do have artifacts that you want to put into these virtual environments, there are off-the-shelf tools that you can deploy there are off-the-shelf tools that you can deploy to generate these AR objects. Now, moving on to the next part of the presentation. So again, it's about speed and it's about trade-offs. So with regard to how to make this effective, it's not necessarily enough to it's not necessarily enough to create these experiences. You need to figure out how to get them into the hands of your users, right? And so you actually have to engage in marketing to get this out there. And some people that we've seen out there are doing this a lot better than others. So for example, your museum is closed. To the extent that people are coming to your website to find out if you're open or when you're going to open up, it would be really great for you to have a link right up top or a dialog box that says, hey, look, we're closed. Go to Google Arts and Culture. Go to YouTube 360. Download the TimeLooper app. Download our new institution map-based immersive platform to be able to have this experience. Use social media. if you're designing these custom content journeys, you're obviously doing it with key stakeholders in mind. So going back to the example of the school groups, reaching out to those schools that you know have signed up for tours and saying, hey, look, we know that all of your students are stuck at home and can't come to school and our doors are closed, but please utilize this virtual tour with your lesson plan as you already would have. Or on April 17th, you were supposed to come on site for a meeting with our living historian or a docent. Let's do this inside of our virtual map platform. And also utilizing newsletters to your donors and to your other members is as a way to generate awareness. People also thinking about posting on, Facebook groups for, what I would like to call self-help, parents who were never homeschool teachers who are now teaching their kids all day. Reaching out to where your communities are, or your local elder care facility, and letting these people know that these resources are now available is going to go a long way towards driving usage. So there are a couple of best practices. The first of which is that whatever you do, you should definitely find a partner that keeps their platform up to date, right? So there are 100 participants on this meeting. There are a range of devices that some people are using. You also want partners that can push to multiple platforms. So it's not just about keeping it updated, but reaching as many people as you can. So every time Apple or Android pushes out an update, you want to make sure that your program still works. A couple of years ago, the National Park Service had an app at the National Mall. Apple sent out an update. The app never worked again, and then they took it offline. So finding that partner to make sure that they're going to keep it up to date is important. Also finding a partner that can push across multiple platforms like YouTube, which has the desktop app, but then they also have a Google Cardboard view, so that way people who are consuming it at home with a smartphone can simply just put it into a cardboard headset if they have one. Partner like TimeLooper who can push out to Oculus, Gear VR, but then also for app downloads, iPad downloads, desktop VR, etc. Also, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Start quickly. So find a content journey that you can create over the weekend or early next week. Sometimes we believe that the sweet spot is about 3 to 5 independent experiences that could take up to 7 or 8 minutes. Beyond that, users get fatigued. So we would definitely recommend that you try to start something quickly and get it out there, and then get feedback from your community. Utilize that feedback in order to enhance or refine your approach for what it is that you're doing in the future. And it can grow over time. And really the last thing I want to mention on this is that everybody is being very understanding in these unusual times. Many of you are being asked to step out of your comfort zone and do something that you've never done before. So try it. And if it doesn't work, you'll fail and you'll learn from it, and your community is going to love you even more for it, because they are looking for all sorts of resources to be able to make the time go at home. And then the last thing that I want to say is, in addition to all those other resources that are out there, there are a couple of responses that TimeLooper has made also to the COVID crisis. So there are all of those free resources that you can all can use, but we're offering all of our resources basically for free for the duration of the COVID crisis. So we will help you to create your content. We are happy to help deploy it for free inside of either the TimeLooper app or a custom map-based platform. We're happy to deploy our VR conferencing and tour functionality for free. You're going to have access to all of this either by going to the TimeLooper website or through this presentation. You can click on these links, and we really mean it. Everything is free. At the end of the crisis, there'll be an opportunity to talk about what comes next. But for now, our goal is to help you get online as quickly as you can. And so the last thing that I'll say is that here's a link to all these resources. We're not just linking you to Facebook. We're linking you to how to upload a video into Facebook. There's a very simple step-by-step guide, a very simple link to where to buy the Ricoh Theta, et cetera, et cetera. And if you want to go in another direction and you have questions about any of this stuff, just reach out to us. We failed so many times that we've learned from our mistakes, and so we're happy to share that knowledge with you. So with that, we're happy to move on to questions. I see 2 questions here immediately in the chat box. First question is from an anonymous attendee. As a staff member of a small museum, a 360 photo video is not an option given time and budget. However, I'm wanting to utilize Zoom to engage with school groups that would typically come for field trips. I would use photos and a presentation. How are you all using Zoom to disable users' video or audio? Great question. So Zoom has what we call a webinar functionality. So most people utilize Zoom for video meetings. This is actually a Zoom webinar. And through Zoom, you have complete control over what it is that your users are able to do inside of this environment. So just go to Zoom, look for their webinar functionality. I think it's $40 a month for up to 100 users. Next question from Dale. Has anyone figured out a good model to generate revenue via virtual content? We charge admission for tours of the historic house, and without admission income, we're searching for ways to supplement both the experience and the revenue. Great question. Yeet, do you want to take this one? You're on mute.
Right. So yes. So the first one is in the long term. So it's not going to be immediate revenue generation, but we have most of our partners. So when we first started, we initially designed this for on-site experience, and most of our partners are monetizing this on-site. Pearl Harbor has a VR theater. There's another historic house about to go live. I don't know when it's going live now with historic figures coming to life. This is, you can imagine, as like a combination of having a private movie studio and then also a section and also an audio guide, which is more immersed. And then the attach rates and then willingness to pay for these expenses is very high. Going back to your original question, which is, okay, how can I monetize it now when people cannot come here? So in this new environment, everybody's stuck at home. And then if you can communicate this new product service to your community, schools that you are already, that they were already bringing customers, you can also say that, hey, like for this same admission or just like a portion of it for this many for students, we can also experience my museum this way. So building on your existing relationship will be very easy to market. And also, in addition to that, you can also host VR conferences. Like imagine this VR conference right now being paid. So you can do, you will be doing the same thing in your virtual environment. You are appearing in the same environment and then giving and then answering to students' questions, just like we are doing, except rather than looking at your presentation, you will be appearing inside the presentation and giving walking them through. So that might be an additional fee.
Great, thank you, Yeet.
There was one more question. There was one more question that I think came to the chat
here.
box.
We have content on TimeLink at present. Can we cross-platform to TimeLooper?
So we can use any asset in our platform. You just have to share the same asset with us if you have the original files, or ask them to send them. But it wouldn't be possible from when they click on TimeLink, it takes you to the content on our platform. They have to be connected, and which will be happy to work with TimeLink. But the short answer, if you have pictures, 360 videos, all that stuff, if you send us, we can also use it on our platform. At the end of the day, those are similar file formats.
And we've actually worked with several partners in the past who have taken their existing audio tour and basically offlined it into these virtual environments. So this is something that we do quite frequently. Any other questions? We've got as much time as you all want. We're happy to stick around. Any other questions? I just want to reiterate as well that this webinar and the PDF will be available on the TimeLooper website later today. I'm also sharing it with Susan and Zinnia, who are going to post it within the SEMC platform, so you can find it at either place. Can I share my contact information? I don't know if I want to do that, but here it is. Here's all of our contact information. And again, you can find it, you'll be able to find all of this on the TimeLooper website, on our webinars link, and then also inside of the SEMC platform. So I think that that's it. We're going to stick around as all of you drop off. Anybody else has any other questions, feel free to either ask them here, or if you want to take the conversation offline, to shoot us an email. We know that this is a very uncertain time, and I just want to stress that we're here to help all of you in any way that we can. So just reach out, let us know what your needs are, and our team is happy to help. So thanks, everyone.